Imagine the most powerful financial minds on the planet, gathered in one room. Billions, even trillions in global wealth and policy hang in the balance. The air is thick with calculated diplomacy, every word measured, every agreement seemingly set in stone. But what happens when, into this world of predictable power dynamics, a voice rises that refuses to play by the old rules? A voice from a nation long told its place is to accept terms, not dictate them? This isn't just a story about a speech at a conference. This is about a moment that ripped through the polished facade of international finance, exposing the raw power imbalances and the deep-seated tensions between global institutions and nations fighting for their sovereignty. Have you ever felt like the system was rigged against you? Like powerful forces were making decisions that impacted your life without your true consent? What happens when someone finally says, "Enough is enough," to a powerful institution that holds immense sway over their nation's future? At the heart of the global financial world, President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso delivered a speech to the IMF that wasn't just bold, it was a direct, unyielding challenge to the established order. His words were so potent, so rooted in undeniable truth, that they didn't just shock the room. They sent Western powers and the IMF into a frantic scramble for a response. If you want to understand the full, shocking truth President Traoré exposed and witnessed the moment a nation's leader stood up to global financial giants, hit that like button and subscribe to Magnificent Story. You won't believe the fallout from this unprecedented stand. Our story unfolds within the hallowed halls of the International Monetary Fund and World Bank annual meetings in Washington, D.C. This is more than just a conference. It's a pivotal global forum where the world's financial elite converge. Here, policies are debated, economic strategies are shaped, and the terms of engagement between nations are often quietly, yet decisively, determined. It's an environment where the perspectives and priorities of powerful nations and institutions hold significant sway, influencing the economic trajectories of countries worldwide. Now, shift your focus to Burkina Faso, a nation situated in the heart of West Africa's Sahel region. It's a land endowed with rich natural resources, notably significant gold deposits, which hold immense potential for national prosperity. However, like many nations across the African continent, Burkina Faso has a complex history intertwined with international financial institutions and the legacy of former colonial powers. For decades, its relationship with global finance has been characterized by a dynamic often perceived as imbalanced. This historical context is crucial. Burkina Faso has frequently navigated a landscape of external loans and aid, which often came tethered to stringent conditions. These structural adjustment programs and policy recommendations, often formulated in distant capitals, mandated measures like austerity and privatization. While presented as pathways to stability, they were frequently seen on the ground as prioritizing the interests of foreign investors and creditors, sometimes at the expense of domestic needs and the nation's ability to control its own economic destiny. This created a persistent tension, a backdrop of perceived unequal relationships that set the stage for the dramatic confrontation to come. To fully grasp the weight of President Traoré's stand at the IMF, we must understand the groundswell that brought him to power. He didn't emerge from the traditional political elite. Instead, he rose as a young military officer amidst deep popular discontent. Years of frustration had built up in Burkina Faso, fueled by persistent insecurity challenges and a pervasive sense that the nation's destiny was being shaped more by external forces than by the will of its own people. This environment created fertile ground for a leader who promised genuine change and a break from the past. President Traoré's message resonated powerfully because it spoke directly to these frustrations. His core vision is centered on unwavering national sovereignty and radical self-reliance. He articulated a fierce determination to ensure that Burkina Faso's rich resources, particularly its gold, would finally serve the prosperity and development of its own citizens first, rather than primarily enriching foreign entities. This wasn't just political rhetoric, it was a promise to reclaim the nation's wealth and chart an independent course, a message that ignited hope across the country. This vision quickly translated into concrete actions that directly challenged the established status quo. His government initiated reviews of existing mining contracts, seeking terms significantly more favorable to Burkina Faso. They emphasized increasing domestic control over strategic assets and actively pursued diversified international partnerships, deliberately reducing reliance on traditional Western allies. These moves were seen not merely as economic adjustments but as a fundamental ideological challenge. They directly confronted the interests of traditional foreign investors and powers who prefer predictable, favorable terms and minimal state intervention. This created an undeniable tension, a quiet conflict simmering beneath the surface, setting the stage for the dramatic confrontation that would erupt on the global stage. The annual IMF and World Bank meetings draw a specific crowd. The halls are usually filled with finance ministers, central bank governors, seasoned economists, and technical experts, the architects and navigators of global financial policy. While heads of state might attend high-level side events or bilateral meetings, it is highly unusual for a leader from a nation like Burkina Faso to personally take the main stage and deliver a primary address at this particular forum. This role is almost always delegated to the nation's top financial officials, who typically present economic data and engage in discussions within the established framework of the institutions. President Ibrahim Traoré's decision to attend and, more significantly, to speak himself at the IMF annual meeting was therefore a powerful statement before he even uttered a word. It signaled a deliberate departure from the norm. By choosing to bypass the usual channels and protocols, where messages might be softened or filtered through layers of bureaucracy and diplomatic language, Traoré made it clear he intended to deliver a direct, unfiltered message straight to the heart of the global financial establishment. This wasn't going to be a standard report on economic indicators or a polite request for aid. Given President Traoré's reputation for directness, his unwavering stance on national sovereignty, and his willingness to challenge the status quo, his presence at that podium generated a quiet but intense anticipation. Everyone in the room and those watching globally sensed that something out of the ordinary was about to happen. A leader known for his defiance on the ground in Africa was now standing at the epicenter of global finance, ready to speak his mind. The stage was set for a confrontation that few had predicted, and its impact would be immediate and far-reaching. As President Traoré began to speak, a profound hush fell over the grand auditorium. The usual rustle of papers and quiet conversations ceased. All eyes were fixed on the young leader from Burkina Faso, sensing that this was no ordinary address. He started by acknowledging the stated mission of the IMF, global economic stability and poverty reduction. But his tone quickly shifted, signaling a departure from polite formalities. "We gather here to discuss the global economy and development," President Traoré stated, his voice clear and resonant. But for nations like Burkina Faso, development has too often been a mirage, a promise that recedes the closer we seem to get. He spoke plainly about the crushing burden of external debt, detailing how significant portions of his nation's budget were consumed by servicing loans, funds desperately needed for building schools, equipping hospitals, and developing essential infrastructure for his people. "We borrow money," he said, "with interest rates and terms that seem designed to keep us in a cycle of repayment, preventing us from investing in the very sectors that would allow us to generate wealth domestically and break free from the need for further borrowing. This is not a path to sustainable development. It is a well-worn road to economic subjugation." His critique sharpened as he addressed conditional aid and structural adjustments. "We are given aid, often tied to purchasing goods and services from the donor countries," he explained, highlighting the inherent lack of true partnership. "We are told to implement economic policies designed in distant capitals, policies that may look theoretically sound but fail to address the complex realities on the ground. This is not genuine assistance. It is control disguised as charity. It is not partnership. It is patronage that perpetuates dependency." He then tackled resource extraction head-on. "Burkina Faso is rich in natural resources," he stated firmly. "Yet, for decades, the agreements governing their extraction have been profoundly unfair. Foreign companies profit immensely, while Burkina Faso receives a fraction of the true value. When the terms are negotiated from positions of vastly unequal power, is it truly a free market, or is it simply legalized exploitation on a global scale?" Then came the core message that sent ripples across the global financial community. "Burkina Faso is here today not to plead for more loans or more aid under the same old terms," President Traoré declared, his voice rising with conviction. "We are here to state clearly and unequivocally, the era of unequal partnerships is ending. We will review all agreements, all contracts, all financial relationships that do not genuinely serve the interests of our people and our nation's sovereignty. We will control our resources. We will seek financial relationships based on mutual respect, genuine equity, and a shared understanding that true development empowers nations, it does not indebt them." He concluded with a powerful statement that resonated far beyond the hall. "The capital you speak of seeking security may be a coward, but the will of a sovereign people to control their destiny is not. And that will is growing stronger every day across this continent." As President Traoré concluded his powerful address, a profound silence enveloped the auditorium. It wasn't the silence of polite applause waiting to begin, but a stunned, heavy quiet. Then, as the weight of his words truly registered, a wave of murmurs swept through the room, quickly escalating into a buzz of astonished conversation. This was not the typical, measured response to a standard speech at the IMF. The proceedings had been undeniably disrupted. The scramble began almost instantly, though initially in hushed tones. Delegates exchanged uneasy glances, their faces reflecting surprise and concern. Hurried whispers started among representatives from Western nations and IMF officials. Mr. Thomas Albright, a senior representative from a major Western power, was seen leaning over to Ms. Isabelle Dubois from another influential nation, speaking urgently. Dr. Ben Carter, a long-serving IMF economist, looked visibly flustered, adjusting his glasses and shuffling papers, clearly unsettled by the unexpected challenge. This was the moment the predictable script of the meeting was thrown into disarray, forcing a frantic reaction from those accustomed to setting the terms of global finance. This moment is more than just a viral clip. It's a significant marker in the global conversation. If you find this story compelling and believe others need to see how power dynamics are being challenged on the world stage, please take a moment to share this video. The initial shock in the auditorium quickly spilled out into the corridors and private meeting rooms. The scramble intensified as Western delegates and IMF officials engaged in hurried consultations and impromptu strategy sessions. The comfortable predictability of the meeting had vanished, replaced by an urgent need to assess the fallout from President Traoré's unprecedented challenge. The concerns being raised were multifaceted and serious. There was immediate discussion about the legal implications of Traoré's threat to review contracts. He can't just unilaterally review contracts, was a sentiment echoed in hushed tones, highlighting the potential legal battles and challenges to international investment norms. Evaluating the economic impact on foreign companies with significant interest in Burkina Faso, particularly in the lucrative mining sector, became a top priority. Beyond the immediate financial concerns, a crucial political assessment was underway, understanding the depth of support for Traoré's stance, both domestically within Burkina Faso and regionally among other African nations. Was this an isolated act of defiance, or the beginning of something larger, a coordinated challenge from the Sahel or even broader across the continent? Recognizing the gravity of the situation, IMF Managing Director Ms. Anya Sharma quickly convened a high-level meeting with her senior staff. The focus of the day's agenda had instantly shifted. The priority was no longer the planned discussions but on assessing the potential fallout from President Traoré's speech and formulating a strategic response. His address had fundamentally challenged the established power dynamic, forcing the West, and the institutions it heavily influenced, into a frantic scramble for a way forward. The comfortable predictability was definitively gone. President Traoré's shocking speech at the IMF was far more than just a moment of defiance in a conference hall. It was a powerful, public illustration of the growing assertion of African agency on the global stage and a direct challenge to long-standing global economic power structures. This confrontation serves as a microcosm of the tension between traditional international financial models, which have often perpetuated dependency, and the determined demand for more equitable, sovereign development across the African continent. From this dramatic event, we can draw significant life lessons. President Traoré's courage teaches us the importance of standing firm in your truth, even when faced with immense power and pressure from established institutions. His clear, principled stance demonstrates that dignity and a well-articulated argument can be incredibly impactful. It underscores the value of national dignity, the right to self-determination, and the potential for even one voice to disrupt established norms and spark a wider conversation. This moment is a testament to the spirit of the broader movement for African self-reliance and its significance for shaping a more balanced and just future in international relations. President Traoré's shocking speech at the IMF was a moment of undeniable truth on the global stage. His direct challenge to the established financial order and the frantic scramble it caused among Western powers highlighted critical global inequities and signaled a changing era. His words were far more than just a speech, they were a powerful assertion of sovereignty. This event underscores the profound impact of standing up for one's principles and nation, even within the most powerful global institutions. What does this pivotal moment tell us about the future of global finance and the rise of African agency? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And for more stories uncovering hidden truths and power dynamics in the political world, make sure you're subscribed to Magnificent Story.